Welcome to Agape Social Justice, where we focus on love, truth, and justice. I am in studio today with Rabbi Lopatin, and I'm excited to have this conversation. One reason is because I live in West Bloomfield, and in West Bloomfield, we have a very rich diversity in our community. I've been heavily connected to, as you all know, Amy Mendel and our West Bloomfield Social Justice Committee, as well as our diversity task force that we have there. And there's a Black Jewish Alliance, a coalition that works together very well that a lot of people are not familiar with. And so I wanted to make sure that we can continue in the spirit of our Agape Social Justice family and introduce you to another community leader who I know you need to know. We have with us Rabbi Lopatin, and tune in, call somebody, tell them to tune in as well. Watch us on RIC TV, online, that's RICC.TV, or on Roku, Apple TV, or Fire TV. That's a lot. I know
That
that
is
was
exciting.
So I am so glad that you're here with us today and get an opportunity to share with the community.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Really honored. And I hear you've only been on like less than a year, so very exciting.
Right. That's right. We've been on for about 7 months or so, if you take out the break
Right.
That we took this summer. But we are looking forward to hearing more about who you are, because I researched. I did some research.
Oh my goodness, always
You're
scary.
not originally from Michigan.
No.
So I kind of love to hear the backstory in terms of how you got to Michigan and transition into what you're doing today.
Well, I'm really from all over. I was born in Northern California. We lived in Israel. We lived in Newton, Massachusetts. I lived in Chicago for 20 years. I was a rabbi in Chicago, in the city in Lakeview at a modern Orthodox synagogue. And I lived in New York. We were in New York 5 years. But when my job in New York was coming to an end, we were looking, where would we want to live? Now, my wife, Rachel, is from West Bloomfield. So,
Okay.
but really the reason Detroit was on the map was because it's such an exciting place. It's really changing, it's growing, it's learning about itself. It's really rediscovering itself, especially the city of Detroit and the new interest from maybe Oakland County and the suburbs in the city of Detroit. So it was an exciting place. So I said, look, if I can find something exciting, it would be Detroit. The other city I was thinking was New Orleans, but Detroit, a group recruited Rachel, my wife, and me to be the rabbi of a synagogue. They wanted to start a new community, so I was going to be their rabbi. And so that was like a part-time synagogue, part-time job, which I have now. And it's a wonderful synagogue, Kilat Etz Chaim. It meets on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays. But I needed something else to do. So I had some funding to start a Center for Civil Discourse, where really, and this was 6 years ago when we were thinking of it, to really bring together diverse people in respectful conversations, serious conversations, not avoiding tough issues, but respectful. And so when I came to Detroit, I came starting that Center for Civil Discourse, and we started actually at Wayne State with a Muslim Jewish fellowship of 20 students, and it was great. But pretty soon after that, I interviewed and was asked to interview for a position for the Jewish Community Relations Council, AJC, JCRC AJC,
Yeah.
which is sort of the bridge from the Jewish community to the broader community. So a lot of interfaith work, working with political leaders, also with the media, with diplomatic leaders, but a lot of it was really working with different communities and connecting the Jewish community to them, understanding each other, understanding those communities, and letting those communities get a better sense of what the Jewish community is about, and also working on issues like AGAPE is interested in justice and social justice, and certainly spreading love. So that's sort of been my main job now for the last 4 years.
Okay. Well, I want to dissect those different areas that you work in throughout this episode, if that's okay. The first thing I wanted to delve into a little bit more is, can you explain what it means to be, when I researched you, it came up saying American modern Orthodox rabbi.
Yeah.
So can you break that down for us? What does that mean exactly?
I would love to. I'm very
Okay.
proud and excited about modern Orthodoxy.
Okay.
So Judaism is a long-standing tradition for thousands of years, but really over the last couple of hundred years, since the Enlightenment in Europe, a couple of branches of Judaism have grown. One is Reform, where it's much more, you could say liberal. I consider myself a liberal, but it's liberal religiously, and it really feels that you are not bound by the law of Judaism. Another branch, denomination of Judaism is Conservative Judaism, where they try to kind of combine things, kind of modern, but kind of keeping the law. And then there's Orthodox. And Orthodox is basically believes it's keeping the tradition, keeping the law. You're obligated to be a religious traditional Jew. However, within Orthodoxy, there's modern Orthodox. And what modern Orthodox is, and really Rabbi Soloveitchik, the great Rabbi Yosef Dov, Joseph B. Soloveitchik, who came in the early 20th century to America, really moved this, and really, in some ways, is the founder of this kind of modern Orthodoxy, at least in America. And the idea is that you can be a traditional Jew, you can be bound by religious law in Judaism, and still be part of the world, and not only be part of the world, but welcome the wisdom of the world, the culture of the world, be excited by meeting diverse people and learning diverse things, and integrate that into Judaism. So it's a fascinating kind of dance. On the one hand, it's holding on to the traditions. We just had Rosh Hashanah, we just had the New Year, and keeping all the laws and traditions, and yet taking the best of the world around us and enhancing Judaism through that. So that's sort of who I am, kind of.
I love it. And honestly, I feel like that speaks to even who I am and how my faith is, right? So I'm a Protestant Christian. You know, there's many denominations within our faith as well. And I feel like there's a lot of people who talk about the evangelical church, right? That's a term that a lot of people are using, and they view it through more of a conservative lens because of the kind of the rhetoric that we hear happening in the country. But what I say to people is that I believe our biblical context, which is rooted in Judaism, is rooted in, what many of my friends practice in the Jewish community, right? It's part of my faith. But we also have a modern view of looking at scripture and looking at how we serve and honor God in the community. And that is through, I believe, agape social justice.
Oh,
So that's kind of
fantastic.
where the name comes from. So I do think there's so many similarities that we have, and people just don't often recognize that.
I totally agree. And we can learn so much from each other. And one of my teachers, Rabbi David Hartman, used to say Judaism is an interpretive tradition. So what we're doing is we're holding on to the tradition. We're holding on to thousands of years of development of Jewish law. And I even believe in the revelation at Sinai. So we got this, everything from God, but we have to interpret it through human eyes, and that's where being part of the world helps us understand what does God want us to do in this world? What's the right way of behaving? So it's very exciting to hear that we're fellow travelers.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the other thing that shocks people sometimes too, particularly when I'm talking to people who are not from the community where we live in Oakland County, Michigan, they're shocked to know that there are so many people within the Jewish tradition who are quote unquote liberal.
Yes.
It's shocking for them.
Right.
And I even have friends who are very adamant about being pro-choice and a number of other issues
Absolutely.
that people would necessarily associate with one's faith, whether it's your faith or my faith, and they're often shocked. Has that always been a part of the tradition, or is that more part of the modern aspect of the faith in recent years?
Well, it's interesting. You go back to the prophets, to Isaiah and Amos, and actually Yom Kippur is on Monday, in a week from today.
Very holy week this week.
Yes. So, and Yom Kippur is a day of fasting and solemn and prayers. But the prophet Isaiah says, God doesn't want your fast. God wants you to do justice and to care for the poor and to fight injustice. And whenever I saw this, and actually some of the songs these psalms that traditionally are said every day in very religious, the most ultra-Orthodox synagogues, and they're all about justice and social justice and being fair and watch out for the poor. And in synagogue, I always used to say, oh, they're being so liberal. What's going on? What can I do? But this is the prophetic tradition. So we've always had that in our Jewish tradition. And I actually think sometimes people are influenced from the outside world to have a more conservative position. And especially in Judaism, Judaism's attitude towards abortion is very complex. When does life begin? Is it conception? Is it 40 days? Is it 7 months? Is it at labor? It's really an interesting question. When is a fetus an independent life? And it's very complicated. And yet sometimes people just pick up from the world around them, politics, and they say, no, Judaism believes this. Now, I'm okay. I'm also for taking in from the world around you, but you have to think about it, you have to analyze it, and you have to go back and say, is this really part of my tradition?
Right.
So I think social justice and being liberal goes way back to the prophets and goes back to Moses, why, we see someone hitting someone else, he defends him. So
I agree. Absolutely. And I'm on this quest of within the faith community, not just within the Christian faith, and building these coalitions so that we can talk to people about how this goes centuries back. This is not a brand new,
Right.
woke movement, right?
Exactly.
This is just about, what God kind of requires us to do to love our neighbor. So I absolutely love the fact that you've broken that down. But let's also talk about some of the nuances I feel like that are complicated right now between the Black community and Jewish community, and the civil discourse that we need. I reached out to my friend Amy and a number of other people, maybe even 2 years ago now. I think it was during the pandemic, because we had these moments where I felt like we were coming together, and it was more of what many people understood from the civil rights movement,
Right,
of that
exactly,
partnership that we had together. At one point, we were talking about showing a documentary in the community,
Oh,
just
yes.
to teach the younger generation of that relationship that
Right,
we've always
right.
had. But there's this, there's been a lot of things happening in the media, comments with celebrities that some people agree with or don't agree with. I personally think you dissect certain things out of it, and we need to have conversation about what that really means and what's appropriate and not appropriate. And so we find ourselves in this unusual state right now, where we have more hate crimes that are happening to both of our communities.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that we should be in lockstep more than we are. I mean, what's your thought on that?
Yeah,
I mean,
I very much agree with you, and it's something that I think we have to spend more time together and talk to each other more and realize, like you said, our commonalities and that we have so much to give to each other. So. Actually, through our Jewish Community Relations Council, we are at AJC. We are co-conveners of this, you mentioned before, Coalition for Black and Jewish Unity, and we're starting a leadership academy for high school students, for both Black and Jewish high school students to come together and once a month learn together, learn about each other, and get to know each other, and get to, really appreciate each other's struggles. And I think it's so interesting. I imagine in the Black community, maybe they might not understand, Jews doing so well and this and that, what kind of struggles, but Jews have these struggles. And in the Jewish community, really getting to understand the Black community and the power, I think the power and the strength that the Black community has. When you go through the Charles H. Wright Museum and you see how going through not only slavery, but then Jim Crow, and being able to have the strength to thrive, I think it's an inspiration as a Jew for me. So we got to get people together more. We've done some work with the Motown Museum. We've had a Motown Museum Freedom Seder. So it's sort of a little Jewish aspect, some of the Motown aspect. Again, getting everyone together more. And that's what our coalition is all about. And learning from each other, but getting to know that, hey, we got to stick together. We got to, look, I feel that way, the Arab American and the Muslim community and the Jewish community and the Black community, and we all got to stick together. And frankly, I don't want to replace anybody, the white community, Protestants, everyone.
Right.
Everyone has struggles,
Right.
and we got to learn how to enforce each other and
Right.
support each other.
Right. We actually have the opportunity to live this and expand it where we live. I mean, we've got the Muslim Unity Center that's right
Yeah.
nearby us,
Oh,
as well
yeah.
as the JCRC. So, I just see this beautiful table of people who have so many different perspectives on life. And to me, that's typically how most people are. We're not usually
Right.
polar opposites, right? And so I think
Exactly.
if we can continue to have that dialogue and do that, that it will not only serve our community well, but maybe spread even throughout the state. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you too is when you do the dialogues that you have under the Center for Civil Discourse,
Right.
what do you see as the challenges in breaking those barriers and getting people to see the commonalities?
Yeah, great question. The challenges, I think, are how can there are two sides. One side is getting people to open up really about their what. Let's say you get Arab Americans and Jewish Americans to talk about the Middle East and Palestine and Israel and Israel and Zionism. These are very sensitive things. So the challenge is really to be able to get people to open up, and some things that we might say to each other might be painful, actually. So to recognize that what I'm saying might be painful to you, but I need to say it, and I love you and I respect you, and therefore I will say it. So that's a major challenge, but it's so important, I think. I don't want to have just relationships at a very superficial level.
Right.
And we have to create that warmth and friendship, but it also means that I can be open with you about something that really I'm questioning, that bothers me. And I think one of the things that's so important is to show how joyful it is when we do come together in these kind of dialogues. I mean, again, you could see, wow, why do I have to do this? It can be so painful. But no, it's great, and you will grow, you will feel enriched by it, and that's what we're trying to work on and show how that if you're not connecting with some other community, Black and Jewish community or Hindu community, and you're not connecting, you're missing out. You're missing out on the fun.
Right. I agree. And it's funny that you mentioned people saying, why do I have to do that? Because I've had this conversation
Right.
probably, kid you not, like 10, 15 times this past year, because even the Black community is saying, Stephanie, I'm tired of explaining.
Right. Yeah.
I'm tired of reliving the trauma over and over and over again. And there is an exhaustion that comes with that. I'll be honest, like it is very tiring. And sometimes you're dealing with, microaggressions that you're trying to explain to people. And sometimes you're dealing with outright racist behavior, right?
Right.
It ranges. And it's so exhausting. But one of the things that I have personally admired about the Jewish community is that it appears to me that there is something that happens from birth, that children are raised, never forget, here's who we are, here's what we stand for. There is a unity that exists like I've never seen in any other community. Like when something happens, I'm always like, it feels like in 2 seconds they mobilize. Like, how does that happen? Like, what did you do? And I know this is you don't speak for everyone in the Jewish community, but in general, like, how does that work? And what would you recommend to other communities in terms of having that level of unity and power and influence, like in like 2 seconds when something happens?
Wow, it's great to hear, because I think in the Jewish community we don't always feel we're so unified.
Really?
But memory is very important. The past weekend we had Rosh Hashanah, the New Year, and we talk about, it's actually called in the Bible the Day of Memory, Yom HaZikaron. So memory is so important. History is so important. And I heard one of our programs is student to student. We bring Jewish students to different high schools where there might not be any Jews there to talk about Judaism. And one of the groups went to a school which was mostly Black, and I heard from the Black pastor who came with us that many of the Black students did not know about the civil rights movement or Martin Luther King. And it's so important to not forget. And okay, they're old timers, look, I find people forget about, Vietnam. I'm a baby boomer. I grew up knowing about the Vietnam War, and in our days, people don't have long memories. And one of the things Judaism really emphasizes is memory, whether it's the homeland, Israel, that we've been yearning for that for 2,000 years, whether it's slavery in Egypt. People say, well, the black community has to get over slavery. That was a long time ago. Well, Reverend Ken Flowers always reminds us that, well, the Jews, every year we have a Seder on Passover to remember we were slaves in Egypt 3,500 years ago. And so it's so important that memory. And once you know that memory, then you kind of like never again, like we're not going to let this happen again. And certainly the memory of the Holocaust in Germany, and not only Germany, but all of Europe that tried to wipe out the Jewish people and did kill 6 million of them. And it's interesting, even in today's politics, I'm always asking myself, and it's a little bit radical, controversial, but am I living in the Weimar Republic of 1929 where maybe the Jews didn't realize things were going to go south so quickly? No one did. And I don't want to get political here.
The same way, you're in good company
Yeah.
because my husband and I are talking about this all the time. I just feel like we're on a very slippery slope.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we become so comfortable in our lives today that we think it's impossible.
Right.
And I think that people felt that way through every type of horrible suffering that any group has gone through.
Right.
We allowed it to slowly build up to where we are today.
Yeah. And it was actually this the beginning of the Jewish year, and I was thinking about, like, on the one hand, I'm so blessed, and my family and my kids and my community and my job. I love all that, but it is a scary time for the world, and that's, so you go back to memory. You go back 100 years. Things, and you might say no. You might say no. We're living in a very different time. Shouldn't be so scared. That's okay. Thinking about it, but that, I think, motivates Jews very much, this idea of really having the memory. There's a holiday where we commemorate the destruction of the temple in 70 CE, 70 AD. And we sit on the floor and we cry. And so we're remembering an exile of the Jews 2,000 years ago. So that memory really motivates us. And, we have to be sensitive. We're living in a different era. But also that memory really pushes the Jewish community, I think.
And I think that resonated with me differently this time because I think about so many of us are fighting right now to make sure that certain states are not removing not even just removing our history, but they're rewriting our history,
Right.
And we're so reliant upon the school system, the government, right, to be able to educate our children and do these things. And what I hear you saying is there's also a personal responsibility, a family responsibility, a community responsibility to make sure that we don't forget, that we continue to pass on the tradition and the history and the education. And I think perhaps that's where we can feel like we have control.
Yeah.
And that there can be hope and there can be some motivation, within our communities. Because right now there's so much despair.
Yeah. I totally hear that, and I think that's why holidays like Juneteenth are so important. And I'm glad it's been made official in our state, and but in the home to really celebrate those holidays and MLK Day and other holidays, and even I imagine in the Christian context when thinking of Easter to in Judaism we always contextualize thing. How does the life of Jesus and how is that interpreted for social justice today? How is that interpreted for freedom today? So I agree.
That's so good, and that could be another episode. Honestly, my sister and I have talked a lot about paganism within the Christian community, and a lot of people don't understand why we don't celebrate Halloween and why we don't buy into the Easter bunny. And there's paganism behind the eggs of the bunny instead of us focusing on, the death of Christ, right? And there's so many things, and I think that kind of tears away from that history and the memory and remembering why we really should focus on something. So no, that was really good what you just said. Well, I want to make sure before we've got a couple of minutes left, before we end, I'd love for you to talk about, give people a website or,
Yes.
however they can reach you and get plugged into the Center for Civil Discourse or JCRC and anything else you want to share as we close out.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that opportunity. So we have both Facebook, JCRC, AJC. If you type in that, you'll get on our Facebook and also our website. And we're redoing our website, so it'll be better. But we love to get you on our list. And so you know about our events. We constantly have events. And it brings together different communities. Sometimes it's the Arab American and Jewish community, Muslim Jewish community, Hindu, do Diwali, but our Coalition for Black and Jewish Unity is really a very exciting thing. And we have its own Facebook. So go to the Coalition for Black and Jewish Unity, and we'd love for you to come to some of our events and be part of our world. We need you. We need people to really come together from the Black community and the Jewish community.
I love it. And I'm actually going to be at the picnic this week.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Fantastic.
So
yes, I got an invitation for that. So I am looking forward to it. I'll see you there. But thank you so much for coming in studio.
Thank you. And good luck with the program.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Agape Social Justice family, I'm excited. I don't know about you, but I'm excited. I love to bring people on who can educate us, share more about their own traditions, share more about their faith and their values and beliefs so that you can see that we have more in common than we have that divides us. We've brought on people from all different backgrounds, and so please share this information so that other people can also learn and be educated and be motivated too. Go back and share this with your children, with your grandchildren, with your neighbors and friends. This is the only way we're going to learn, the only way we'll have a better society. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts on it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
The mission of our organization is to be a bridge builder with other communities and to represent the Detroit Jewish community to the greater public. When there's an issue of importance, we're the ones who express the opinion of the Jewish community.
One of the most meaningful experiences that I had was our rally that we held. Different members of different agencies all together, and we protested. And we said enough is enough, stop hate. We do a great job, I think, in terms of educating members of our community on matters that we believe are very important to them.
I'm so proud of the work we've done with the Coalition for Black and Jewish Unity, with the work we've done with the Muslim-Jewish relations, and now we're building a relationship with the Hindu community.
JCRC, AJC in particular has been phenomenal at helping lift my voice and also being a sounding board as I bring up issues, understanding where my heart is and understanding where I would like to move legislation and bring people together.
Reverend Dr. D.D.M. Coleman, and I am the pastor of Russell Street Missionary Baptist Church. I am also the co-chair of the Coalition for Black and Jewish Unity. It's coming together to push up those issues that affect us and talk about them.
I'm Jackie Hedepole, and I'm the editorial director at the Detroit Jewish News. All of our readers know that the Jewish community is not an island unto itself, and that to make progress in Metro Detroit, we all need to work together. It's extremely important that we continue building community relations work, and we have to do that by continuing to build bridges and make friendships and be honest and transparent and sincere.
My name is Mahmoud Al-Hadidi. I'm the chairman of Michigan Muslim Community Council and co-chair of NJAC, Muslim Jewish Advisory Council, and founder of Stockbridge Foundation. I hope that our work together will make this world a better world for our communities, at least here at home in the United States, as neighbors and friends. And if we could export this goodwill relationship to the rest of the world, that despite our differences, our disagreement, we could work together for the common good.
My name is Rabbi Asher Lopatin. I'm the executive director of the JCRC AJC. I would have to say that the most fulfilling thing in my work is just the joy of connecting with members of different communities who were able to move the needle and we're really able to affect change and to make this world a little bit better, and that is very rewarding.
Hey, Agape Social Justice family. Thank you so much for tuning in every Sunday at 8:30 p.m. We appreciate it. And as we told you before, we would have a merch store, and we do. This is our V-neck ladies shirt, and you can find this on agapesocialjustice.com. This is our logo, and it says love, truth, and justice, which is what you know we stand for. We also have a mug, and we have the logo on the mug. You can find this on the website as well as a phone case, a pen, a tote bag, and a number of other accessories, even a hoodie. You can find that on agapesocialjustice.com. Feel free to spread the word. Go to our social media on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and on X. We're Agape Social Justice. And so look for us there, and we thank you. We appreciate you. See you next time.
Hi there, Agape Social Justice family. My name is Walt Kreider, Stephanie's husband. Of course, you know about the show and what we stand for, but I got a real stupid question for you. How many of you were offended when you saw that of Tyree Nichols as well as the other homicides that the police have created throughout our country? Well, we have created an organization called Police2 Protectors. That's police, the number 2, protectors with an S.org. What do we stand for? It's all about transforming the police into that of the protectors. Because what do we care about in our communities? You know, we don't care about being police. We don't care about being ticketed. We care about being protected. And that's exactly what we're talking about in terms of reimagining what the police, what law enforcement, what our protectors can actually reflect and bring to our communities. So not only just join this effort, because yes, we need your support, but also we need your financial support. Check us out, police2protectors.org.